Together, we've got 4 chances to prove these comic book haters wrong. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up 4 orders from Things from Another World. It is a place that I still do some light pre-ordering, specifically around retailer incentives. There are times where still some 1 in 25s, maybe some 1 in 50s, still catch my eye from time to time. And I will end up adding these books to my Things from Another World pre-order, which I don't use for subscriptions anymore. It's literally if I can find a retailer incentive that I like, I add it to essentially like a future order, and then as the books release, Things from Another World will process my orders based on release date and group those items together, and I think I select a monthly shipment from them. So they will stack books that release and then send them out to me once a month. Now, I've been getting a lot of hate messages from people who have had a rough experience with Things from Another World, particularly when you get an order sent out like this in their kind of lightweight cardboard mailer, and the books are just not coming in as 9.8 candidates. And now, while I'm not necessarily an advocate for one store or another in terms of guaranteeing a 9.8, I have had a good experience with Things from Another World over the years, and I will still occasionally order from them from time to time. Now, I have completely scaled back my retailer incentive purchasing, limiting it to really only the books that I feel like I really want to have for some reason or another. Whereas I think a couple of years ago, I was ordering almost as many of the 1 in 10s and 1 in 25s that I could find. So I'm much more selective now, but I still use TFAW as a resource for these books. So I want to go ahead and unpack these 4 orders and show you some of the books that I've recently received from them that I have been ordering over the second half of 2023. So let's get to the unboxing of these orders so that we can prove all of these TFAW haters wrong. Or right, we'll see, we'll find out. All right, here are the 4 orders that I'm about to open up from Things from Another World. They send these orders via FedEx, and you can pick kind of your shipping options, as I mentioned. I think that they will also offer UPS and DHL, I believe, and then you can kind of set your frequency in terms of how often you want to receive shipments. I had made this mistake in the past where they were sending me books too frequently and sending me like one at a time and paying a full FedEx rate for one comic book. And so I'd made this adjustment to send out a monthly shipment at a much cheaper rate. It's still a little pricey, which is why I don't do a ton of ordering. But sometimes if I really want a book and TFAW is the only place that is allowing me to pre-order this incentive, that's why I choose TFAW. So let me go ahead and get these 4 orders unpacked so we can go through the comics. Okay, so I got through the unpacking of the 4 orders, and let's just start with the comic book that is right on the top that we can see, and this is The Devil's Cut from the new creator-owned comic book company Distillery, and this is their 1 in 10. If you've never heard of Distillery, I would just say probably check them out on social media. They're very active. Or go to the website to just see the list of the awesome creators that are involved with Distillery. And this is the 1 in 10 retailer incentive with cover art by Becky Cloonan. And it was difficult when I was pre-ordering these books to see because they were showing like the full horizontal like wraparound cover, and it was not, I think, as attractive as the actual book itself. So I think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity where I couldn't quite see the appeal of the different variant covers. But now that I have it in my hand, and it is magazine style, it is oversized, so you do have to to deal with that. And here I've been trying to purge my collection of magazine style books, and I'm all in on Distillery's business model, The Devil's Cut, a lot of their first issues from some of the great creators, and now I will have a bunch of magazine-sized books. But really, really thought this was attractive and intriguing cover art by Cloonan, and The Devil's Cut, it can be considered kind of a preview of their books, or potentially first appearances of characters that will be showing up in the various independent stories as published by distilleries. This was sent as one of the 4 orders, so we're already through one of the 4 orders there. And if you stayed at the end of the video, I'll show you when I ordered these books, when I pre-ordered them, how much I paid for them, etc. Just to keep track of things, let's do the second order, which was another book by itself. And this was an absolute FOMO order. I saw this book had picked up a lot of heat. I wasn't going to purchase it because the cover art was a little iffy for me, but when I saw that it was getting attention for some of the right reasons and wrong reasons, and I saw that TFAW had it available, I went ahead and picked it up, and it is blank. So that, I guess they, hey, to their credit, they put double boards in here, which is nice. So let's see how the book turned out, as I'll have to take it out of the bag and board. All right, and here it is. It is Alpha Flight #1, and this is the Art Adams 1 in 50 retailer incentive. And this is exactly why, the eyes, this book got a lot of attention, because you can't miss it. If you see this up on the wall at an LCS or online, you cannot miss the cover art here given to us by the legendary Arthur Adams. And it'll be interesting to see now. I don't see this book really being hyped up or appearing on all the various lists. I'd like to see now, here in late 2023, if the book has cooled off and what the values are. But just from a quick glance perspective, I'm looking for like significant corner damage on these, and it looks to be okay. There's possibly some creasing along the spine, so this may end up being kind of like a 9/6 that needs a quick press sort of situation. But the corners look pretty good. I don't see any bends, dog ears, and so forth. So really sharp corners all around. So I would say best case 9/8 candidate, worst case 9/6, in need of a quick press. But looks to be a really nice copy sent from TFAW. Happy so far with the first 2 orders. All right, on to order 3. Let's take a look at the shorter of the 2 stacks here. And this should be 4 more retailer incentives. And the first one up is World's Finest Teen Titans issue 3. This is the Dan Panosian 1 in 25. In a recent unboxing, I had picked this up from a different store, and I ordered 2 copies because I really thought that this was a great nostalgic upper corner character box style cover, and really loved it. Big fan of Dan Panosian, so always on the lookout for something that he does. And what I'll probably end up doing is taking a look at the 2 copies that I have, picking the one in the best condition and getting that one graded for display. And again, this one looks good, sharp corners. Here we go with Transformers #1. Really looking forward to diving into this series, and ended up splurging on some incentives. Now, this book is most likely heavily ordered, so these retailer incentives are not hard to find, but it didn't matter to me. It was Transformers, and I loved pretty much all of the covers for #1 through Image Comics / Skybound. And just gorgeous, gorgeous cover art by Francis Manipool, who also has a great YouTube channel that I follow. I love watching or consuming content with anything that has to do with behind the scenes of what creative people or creative businesses come up with. And he's got some great behind the scenes videos of his process, and then also his creator-owned comic entity, I believe, that he's part of, along with Jeff Johns and some other creators. But again, really gorgeous copy. The corner on this one is probably suffering from just a hair of spine splitting there, but nothing really that's the fault of TFAW's. And along with that 1 in 50, I picked up Transformers #1, and this is the 1 in 10 retailer incentive. Now this one I can tell does have a little bit of corner softening there. I'll have to see if I can move it across with my thumb. Sometimes you can pull back the paper and it won't leave a crease or a color break. I do notice a color break right in here. It's a hairline break right there. You can kind of see it, and that's not art. It is a color breaking tick. So this one might end up being a 9.6, 9.4. There's another I think it's because of the paper on the cover. It's just sort of pulling apart there at the edge. But had to get this one as well. This Transformers 1 in 10 close-up profile of Optimus Prime by Aro Sena. And the last book in this order, this is Poison Ivy, number 15. This is the 1 in 25 by Seb McKinnon, who's been doing some of these Poison Ivy covers, and they've just been outstanding. And this cover really gives off this really kind of impressionist quality. And I don't know, it just really struck me when I was looking at incentives during pre-order and FOC. I think that this one also could be a 9.8 candidate. Corners are really nice looking and sharp at the top and the bottom. Just a touch of softening there. Again, could be borderline 9.8 candidate or 9.6. It's just ever so slightly has just a touch of splitting, or right there you can kind of see it. It's so minute, but again, that's kind of borderline. Depends on the kind of grader I think you get. But a really nice, extremely high grade copy. 9.6 at worst, probably a 9.8 candidate on its own. Nevertheless, really cool Poison Ivy cover by Seb McKinnon. All right, so that concludes the third order. And let's take a look at the final order. This was the largest of the 4 orders. And we'll start off, so I did see this while I was opening up the order, so we'll start off here with Blade number 1. And this is a 1 in 25 cover by Kari Andrews. And I'll be honest, I have seen this other places for a lot less than I paid for. This one just didn't take off, and that's the thing with retailer incentives. Sometimes they take off, like that Alpha Flight Art Adams cover, and then other times they just don't. The interest just isn't there. I took a chance on Blade number 1 because I believe there was some speculation about a new character or character origin, and I'm a big Kari Andrews fan, so I like to pick up a lot of the work that he does. I think from a condition perspective, I think we're in good shape here. I don't really see any damage to this one as well. So these TFAW haters are really going to be upset with this video, I'm sure. But that's Blade number 1. Next is Something is Killing the Children, number 31. This is also a 1 in 25. And there's so many variants and different covers for this series, but really liked this cover. And then looking at the condition here, splitting on this one is really bad. So there you go. There's that right there. It's almost like the back cover is peeling away from the rest of the book, but that's unfortunate. So this is probably the first one that I noticed has some significant damage, where it's probably more like a 9.2 to 9.4. But again, kind of like the Blade issue 1, this is a 1 in 25 that I don't think really took off. We'll check the numbers later on before I continue to just kind of wonder and speculate. We'll look at the data and let the data tell us if it's holding any value or not. Next is Scarlet Witch number 7. This is a 1 in 50 by Megan Hetrick. And I wanted to grab this one because the solicitation for this book had the first full appearance of this character right on the cover inside the book. And a lot of times when I'm thinking of speculating on a book while I pre-order, if there's a chance that a new character or new story development or something is happening within the book, but also on the cover and it's a retailer incentive, it kind of checks a lot of the boxes where I'll go ahead and gamble on that book. And also really liked the cover itself, so that's another checkbox that has to be checked. And just like some of the other books, very curious to see if this one has held its value over time. All right, next up is The Sacrificers number 1, cover art by Jenny Frison, so difficult to really pass this one up. And the thing is, over time, it's not really going to matter if it's a 1 in 10, 25, or 50. It's about the demand for the book. So this 1 in 10 may end up having more value than this 1 in 50, which then, again, it goes against kind of what I'm trying to do here, which is pre-order for a little bit less than ratio. But then over time, if these are all 9.8s in their slab, if the demand for Sacrificers 1 by Frison fans or folks that love this Rick Remender independent story, then this will overtake some of those other higher ratio books. And I just thought this was another gorgeous Frison cover, so I had to grab it. And along the same lines, we have The Sacrificers #1, and this is cover art by Tula Lotte. And this is a 1 in 10 retailer incentive. The Frizzen book is a 1 in 15. So the 1 in 15 here, along with the 1 in 10, not super steep ratios, so made the books a little more affordable. And these aren't rare by any stretch. You can certainly find these right now online. But two of my favorite artists doing covers on a book, Frizzen, Lotte, had to get them both. Next up, again, Frizzen. Oh my goodness, what a gorgeous cover. This is the Red Sonja 2023 series #1. And this is a limited full art variant. And it was a little confusing when I ordered it. Like TFAW had it available. It was not a retailer incentive and it just said limited. And I don't know how limited it is and wanted to take a chance and make sure that I picked up a copy. But I really don't know what to say about this cover. Frizzen's style is quite stunning. Just a blend of fantasy and realism that's just almost unmatched at this point. I mean, you can see the textures in the skin and the glove here as she's holding her shield, but just tremendous. And this was quite an expensive book to pre-order, so also curious to see what kind of value this has. Wow, tremendous Red Sonja #1 with Frizzen art on the cover. Next up, we have another copy. Okay, I ordered 2. That's why it was so expensive. I was looking at the cost. Actually, now it makes total sense. I forgot. I ordered 3 of these. So, wow, I was like, really? 1 is that expensive? No, I got 3. I don't know how limited they are. I don't know how limited a book is when you can order 3 at a time, but ended up getting 3 of these and will absolutely send in the best of the 3, if not all 3, into CGC. So, super happy there. The last one is Extreme Venomverse #4, another book that was kind of a hot top list FOMO speculator sort of thing. And I knew this character was coming out, this anime Venom character. So I picked up a couple of copies of the cover A and knew this was also available and ended up finding it on TFAW of all places. And again, just from a condition perspective, just some very, very slight spine corner splitting right up there, but not too bad. Spine looks great otherwise, and the bottom corner is probably, again, I don't see any issues there. So another 9.8 candidate or 9.6 at worst there with Extreme Venomverse #4. Wow, what an awesome set of 4 orders from Things from Another World. I believe from a conditions perspective, not every book is a 9.8. I think we did have a couple that could potentially miss here, like this Something is Killing the Children book with that corner. But I think for the most part, the haters are just going to be wrong. They're going to hate. I'm going to get those DMs, and that's just the way it's going to be. And I'm going to keep ordering from TFAW and keep trying to snag great books like these. But right now, what I'm curious about are the values of these books, because I am interested in sending many of these in for grading, but I also want to just see from a raw fair market value perspective, are these books holding up based on what I paid for these? So let's check out those details in the order summaries. All right, here is the order summary for the 4 orders that I placed with Things from Another World, delivered around the end of summer, early fall 2023. And I'm just going to go in the order that I unboxed the orders. So the very first order was 1 issue. It was the Devil's Cut #1 one-shot from Distillery. This was the 1 in 10 retailer incentive. After tax and shipping, that book cost me $15.30, as you can see in column Z. And compared to the current fair market value and cover price of $11, it was a loss of $4.30 for that book. Order number 2, Alpha Flight #1, the Art Adams 1 in 50. I ended up paying $54.72 for that one book after tax and shipping. However, the cover price fair market value of that book is currently $117 for a positive value add of $62.28. So I feel like that was a very timely pickup and happy to add that one to my collection. Now, order number 3, the 2 Transformers books, World's Finest Teen Titans and Poison Ivy #15. I was invoiced $113.82 for those 4 books total. And now that you can see column AA, the raw value add, this order was a loss of $30.82. Poison Ivy 15 was a decent pickup at $25.99 and a total cost fair market value of $32. Those Transformers books, I knew this would happen going in, but for some reason I just told myself order it anyway. You can see the fair market value of those books. Those are falling under ratio, the 1 in 10, $9, and the 1 in 50 sitting at $32. And as much as I love Dan Panosian and his cover for Teen Titans, I ended up overpaying at $25.99 for a $10 1 in 25. And moving down to the final order here, this was the order filled with 3 copies of Red Sonja #1, the Jenny Frison full art variant. I was invoiced $265.87 for this order after tax and shipping. However, there is a nice value addition, or maybe a break even, but nevertheless, $4.13. However, that was really carried by 1 book, maybe 2, the Extreme Venomverse #4, 1 in 25. I paid $25.58 for that book, and it has a cover price fair market value currently of $80 for a $54.42 value add. And the Scarlet Witch #7, 1 in 50, I paid $50.22 for that book. That's a lot. It currently has a fair market value of $78 for a $27.78 value add there. So I would say at first glance, kind of mixed feelings on the books in terms of their values and retailer incentives and what I paid. There were some nice wins, but also several significant losses. I think ultimately it's going to depend on how these books grade out. Now, normally this is where I show you 9.4s and 9.8s and kind of compare the values, but I actually went through and graded each book from these 4 orders by hand, and I am going to go back and show you the grades that each of these books received here by populating them back in. The Devil's Cut one-shot magazine style, it seemed to be damaged in some area around the spine. There were some dents and creases in there, and then some severe, like almost like ripping and tearing around the top corner. Really just looked to be in rough shape for a brand new book. Some color breaks even on the back. 9.2 is what I assigned that. Alpha Flight #1 was a 9.8. I almost couldn't believe it. I just wanted to put the book away in a brand new full back and bag as fast as possible and mark it down as 9.8 because I just didn't want to hold it in my hands any longer. So that got a 9.8. Transformers #1, #50, it was borderline 9.8, 9.6. I feel like I'm way too hard on the books, and I ended up leaning towards the 9.8. It's almost like a 9.7. But I do feel like there's some minor bindery tearing on the corners, and I think that that was probably my biggest issue, and I'll go into that in more detail and explain that in a little bit. But 9.8 for that one, 9.6s on the other 2 books here, Transformers #1, 1 in 10, and The World's Finest, Teen Titans #3. Poison Ivy 15, unfortunately, got a 9.4. There was just too much damage to that book. And then in the last order, I had a couple of 9.8s. The Blade #1, which was probably the one that I didn't care about. I care about all the books, but I cared the least about that book. And of course, that one got a 9.8. And then the Extreme Venomverse #4, fortunately, got a 9.8 for me there. And if you're noticing too in column V, the CGC fair market value, because the books are relatively new and because they didn't quite get the 9.8 as I had hoped or what I was at least aiming for, the only comic that had significant graded values where I could actually pull from was Extreme Venomverse #4, and you can see $139 in a 9.8 for a CGC value add of about $81. And there is that value add in column AB, but it's really not even worth exploring because you can see a lot of zeros here. The 2 biggest disappointments in that final order were 2 of the Red Sonja #1s, that full art Jenny Frison cover limited. Both of these 2 copies here, where I gave it an 8.5 and a 9.0, had significant scratches. And if you have ever purchased comic books published by Dynamite, their cover paper is, I think, worse than Marvel's. They had several like dimples or indents. One had one significant vertical scratch, just awful. And when you send these to CGC, you can't. I mean, it's like any other comic book, right? It's like you can't say, well, I received it and it had a little damage, so give it a 9.8. It's damaged one way or another. It's like somebody took a paperclip and just went right down the back cover. So very, very unfortunate. The timing of this order is interesting too because I waited so long to open it. I can't really contact TFAW. I think they have like a 30-day policy. So I'm kind of beyond that of saying, hey, can I get 10% of my money back because there's a scratch? I'm just leaving it. And I know I should be more timely with opening these so I can handle these situations, but it is what it is. It's part of the gamble and the risk that I take. The third cover did get a 9.6, and I believe it has one pressable defect where it could be smoothed out, I believe, with a quick press. So that one I am hoping does get a 9.8 at some point someday. Now, quickly glancing at all of these grades that I assigned it, now comes sort of the debate. Are the haters right? Are the folks that complain about the condition of their books that they've received from TFAW, are they right? This is where it's like, well, it sort of depends. If you've picked up one copy of Red Sonja 2023 #1, and that was the one that had all the scratches, and you got an 8.5, you'd be seriously disappointed, dejected. I'm never ordering from TFAW again, burn it to the ground, and all of that. But if you ordered Extreme Venomverse, Blade #1, Transformers #1, the 1 in 50, and of course Alpha Flight, and you got 9.8s, you think TFAW is the greatest thing in the world. So it's kind of an interesting debate. I think overall, in general, I am slightly disappointed. I feel that I've received books in better shape than the comics I got from TFAW this time around. However, there were some 9.4s and 9.6s across these four orders that kind of had me puzzled. There were several that had bindery tears, and that's a difficult one because on the corners of the spine of a comic book, there's lots of different ways that a corner can become defective or something that basically a grading company or even your average collector that grades books, they're going to look at these corners and recognize all of the different ways that a comic book could be damaged. And a bindery tear to me is such a coin flip. I still struggle with grading these myself. I took some time to look up on the CGC forums and some other grader sites to see what are some examples of bindery tears, how do they deal with it, and for the most part, people had blunted, ripped, and damaged corners that they were calling a bindery tear, and those were not bindery tears. A true bindery tear really looks like the page is just opening up. And what ends up happening is there's usually like just a slight piece of the corner, the paper there, that ends up just kind of lifting up. So you're kind of tempted to almost like pull that little piece of paper off to make the corner look nicer because it's just sort of this dangling piece of paper. And I never do that. I'd rather leave the paper on there and have it just kind of lie open or see if there's a way just that I can wrap it around just so it doesn't look so bad. But I received mixed feedback on my research. However, the consensus was really a bindery tear on a more or less perfect book. It's going to get a 9.6, but then you saw examples of 9.8s with those same bindery tears, some even going all the way up and down the spine. And so that's where I just am on the fence with that. So some of these books I was a little bit harsher on the 9.4s and 9.6s, probably worthy of a pre-screen. Press wouldn't really benefit the book at all. And I think that I probably need to send a batch of these bindery tear books in to CGC as an experiment. But that's where some of the grades, if you looked in the order summary, if you're like, well, see, I was right. TFAW has terrible quality books and never going to order from them again. But some of them were just, could be manufacturing. I'm not exactly sure. So I don't know if this really answered any questions. It probably raised more than it did. But I think that my general sort of gut feel and reaction, it's almost like when I'm grading books, what is that first assessment? Because I've graded so many books, if I'm holding a book like the Alpha Flight #1, the Art Adams cover, I knew exactly when I took it out of the bag and board and laid it down to observe it, and give it that first look, I knew it was a 9.8. Like, you could just tell the way that, I don't know, it's just sort of the instincts at this point, having done this for so long. And it was the same sort of feeling when I had all of the comics kind of laid out and I was going over the grades. I was just slightly underwhelmed. So while I don't want to say that the haters are correct, they probably do have a right to be upset, but slightly. I do feel like TFAW is still a great source for comics. I think that when you look at what you're paying for some of these books, the retailer incentives in particular, the incentives are treated like any other comic. I understand that the buyer has paid more, so you feel like you should be getting a better book back. But that's part of the emotion that you have, and you have to take emotion out of this. If you're going to spend $50 on a 1 in 50 or $35 on a limited cover, you feel like you should be getting your money's worth. But you have to realize if you're buying a 1 in 50, it's the same as cover A in terms of the comic, the insides, the quality. I mean, yes, unless it's a foil, but if it's just a standard retailer incentive, the online retailer isn't paying $50 for that. They're getting it as a bonus where they're able to purchase it along with the other 50 copies. So it's a comic book just like every, it doesn't arrive in some sort of gold case. It's the same. It's exactly the same in terms of the handling, for the most part, the paper, how it's manufactured, meaning you can expect bindery tears, you can expect color breaks. And that's part of the trouble with dealing with these types of books, is that you feel like as a collector, your standards are higher. You want the online retailer standards to be higher because you're investing more money into picking up these incentivized copies of the same comic, but in the end, it's just the same. How do you think these 4 orders turned out? Is it kind of what you expect from Things from Another World or any online store? Do you kind of take your hits with your misses and just kind of average it out? Let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate your feedback. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.